Halo Infinite will turn 3 years old later this year, and the game's core audience seems happy. The multiplayer section of the game, which is what players keep coming back for, has been receiving steady updates that have kept the loyal player base satisfied, if not extremely happy. However, it is fair to say that Halo as a brand is not as strong as it once was and is struggling to attract newer players. And it is not as if we can blame only the newer games like Apex Legends or Fortnite for this. Even Call of Duty, a brand that is almost as old as Halo, has managed to reinvent itself to attract newer audiences and is now arguably coasting on its success by releasing half-baked annual games. The irony is that Microsoft now owns both Halo and Call of Duty, so I wonder how much longer the Halo brand can go on at this rate. Wouldn't it make more sense for Microsoft to simply retire the brand and focus on making more Call of Duty games? Only time will tell. For now, Halo Infinite is still alive, and although it seems like the developers are moving on to their next project, Infinite is still receiving regular updates. In this video, let us take a look at the state of the game as it exists in early May 2024 and try to guess what the future may bring. And let's start with the campaign. Even though most people may have nostalgia for Halo due to its multiplayer modes from the early games, it was the campaign that originally propelled the first Halo to fame all the way back in 2001. Going to outer space and fighting aliens as a superpowered human felt like a fresh and exciting idea back then, but 20 years later we have had many games with such a premise, and it's definitely a bit harder to feel excited for it now. That said, the story of Halo Infinite does try to bring something new to the franchise with the first open world map that is surprisingly fun to roam about. And there's two words to describe why it feels fun: grappling hook. Every other AAA game seems to have a grappling hook nowadays, so why should Halo be any different? And so many games have this mechanic because it almost always feels like a positive addition. It adds speed and momentum that just feels good. Some games try to limit the usage of this mechanic by allowing you to grapple only at certain points or by adding long cooldowns. Halo Infinite does the smart thing by allowing you unlimited usage of the grappling hook but with a short cooldown. So you can spam it to move around the map faster, but you'll have to keep the cooldown in mind as well. You can even pull weapons and other objects to yourself by using the grappling hook, and it just feels amazing when you pull something useful towards yourself and use it against an enemy. Those few moments of gameplay are what keep the campaign interesting. I started out by describing the gameplay because the story is just mediocre. It's nothing that we haven't seen before, but the story conveyed by the 16 missions in the campaign are hardly memorable. All the bosses seem a bit alike, and the level layouts seem similar too. You're almost always going up or down through a level and then fight a boss to move on to the next level. After 20 years, it is no doubt difficult to write a story that is good enough to please the existing fan base and also be simple enough to attract new audiences. So I'm not too worried about the direction taken by the story in this game. What I'm happy about is that the gameplay is fun enough that you feel motivated to reach the end and still stick around to complete a few more side objectives. I played for a couple more hours after finishing the campaign, mainly flying around from one side objective to the next in an attempt to clear the map. All said and done, I was happy with the time I spent in the campaign, even if I immediately forgot what the missions were about a week later. Oh, and one more thing. The campaign is notoriously difficult, so if you find yourself dying a lot, don't be embarrassed about lowering the difficulty level. This game can be tricky even on normal, and I can't even dream about trying it on the legendary difficulty. But for those of you who have the reflexes, there are enough difficulty challenges here to keep you happy. Next, let's go to the multiplayer side of things. Halo Infinite is a unique entry in the franchise for two reasons. One, it released on the PC after almost 2 decades of being absent on that platform. And two, it became the first game to make its multiplayer mode free to play at launch. Initially, this got it decent reviews and introduced a new audience to the Halo franchise for the first time. But it was clear that something was missing. The gameplay was good, but not good enough to retain players. After the initial interest wore off, people started going back to their battle royales and MOBAs. It quickly became clear that the prestige of the Halo franchise was not enough to keep players interested in the modern era. It didn't help that the staff at 343 Industries kept leaving and the development of the live service part of the game suffered. The first season of the game went on way longer than intended, and by the time the second season came along, a large part of the initial audience was gone. Anyway, fast forward to 2024, and Halo Infinite multiplayer has officially dropped the seasonal model after 5 seasons and is instead releasing smaller updates every 4 to 6 weeks called Operations. From day one, Halo Infinite has tried to remove FOMO from the game by allowing players to complete their battle passes anytime they wanted. In fact, you can go to the store and buy all 12 battle passes that have been released since 2021 and complete them all at your own pace. Very few games do this, and it is part of the reason why the people who still play this game continue to keep playing. One way to quickly judge the health of any multiplayer game is to look at the queue times. How long does it take to get into a match? And at the time of recording, I was happy to notice that I was getting into matches within seconds. Of course, this was on a Saturday morning when more people are likely to be online, but this is still indicative of a healthy population in the game. Putting aside all talk about progression and battle passes, I found the multiplayer gameplay and the variety of playlists in Halo Infinite to be quite good. I particularly like the PvE mode called Firefight, which allows for infinite use of the grappling hook just like in the campaign. I don't see myself playing this game like it's my second job, but it's certainly one of those games that you're always happy to drop into occasionally whenever you have a short block of time to kill. Finally, let me spend a few seconds on the Forge mode, which contains all the user-generated content for the game. This is a huge part of the game for many who like building maps and other experiences, and it's been a staple of Halo games for a long time. But as I said in my UGC video, this isn't something that I have a lot of experience in, so I can't say much about it. I did notice that there were more than 600 pages of Forge maps to choose from, so if this is the sort of thing that interests you, then this game has plenty to keep you busy. The first Halo game was called a system seller for the original Xbox console. More than half of all people who bought Xbox consoles in the launch window also bought a copy of Halo Combat Evolved. Today, Halo Infinite might not be a system seller for the Xbox Series X and S, but it is still an important part of the Xbox brand. There's enough variety in the 3 core game modes to keep you busy, and it is one of the few games that has a user-friendly approach to microtransactions and battle passes. We don't know for sure when the next installment or story DLC will be released, but I am certainly looking forward to Master Chief's next adventure.